Hello YouTube, I'm Jack Clark, the Eagle Musketeer, coming to you with another video. How are you? So, of course, Batteryman 9 Volt is coming out in the Duelist Advent in the OCG, and it is a fantastic card. It makes the Batteryman deck very, very good. And instead of just talking to you about Batteryman 9 Volt, I thought, you know what? The Batteryman deck is my favourite deck. It's my favourite archetype of all time. Ever since Batteryman AA came out in 2005, in the Lost Millennium, I have been playing the deck. It was the deck that got me into competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! And it was the best deck, and I love it to pieces. This deck's nearly 10 years old, and I feel like I can impart some wisdom in how the deck is played, and hopefully convince you that this deck could be the deck for you. So I'm going to go chronologically. I'm going to go through all the cards, tell you what they do, how they can be used correctly, and used in regards to each other, and just a guide, basically. So first off, we have Batteryman AA, the first Batteryman monster. Now, it's a light thunder type monster, like all of the Batteryman monsters, and is a level 3. It has no attack and no defense, however, its effect is what is key. So, if all Batteryman AAs you control are in attack position, this card gains 1,000 attack points for each of them. And if all Batteryman AAs you control are in defense position, it gains 1,000 defense for each. So basically, depending on the battle position, the more Batteryman AAs you have on the field, the better they become. With 1 on the field, it will gain 1,000 attack points. With 2, they both have 2,000 attack points each. But with 3, they each have 3,000 attack points each, with a grand total of 9,000, which gives you your win condition to be able to attack directly with all 3 Batteryman AAs for a grand total of 9,000 life point damage, ultimately winning the game since your opponent will only start with 8,000. This was called the Batteryman AA OTK, and was the initial way to win with a Batteryman deck. However, with new cards that come out, this strategy kind of became a little bit more archaic. The best way that you'd be able to get all of them on the field at the same time would be Inferno Reckless Summon, which of course is not searchable, but it's still an okay card. I mean, modern uses for it include it being level 3 means you can use a Debut Dragon for immediate Black Rose access, and being 0 defense, it means you can also summon it with Masked Chameleon and such. So it does have some utility outside of that, but being a level 3 really does hurt its playability in modern Batteryman decks because it doesn't work with rank 4s, which of course does not really work well for it. But of course it could potentially still work in its own dedicated deck, but only use Batteryman AA in free and only if you're focusing on it. However, a more conventional Batteryman deck, a better Batteryman deck, doesn't use it anymore, which is very sad, but as is the way as you move forward. Next off, we have Batteryman C. Now I'm going to tell you what Batteryman C does, but I'm going to tell you right now, you do not use this card in any deck ever. Batteryman deck or otherwise. Batteryman C is a level 2 light thunder type monster with no attack and no defense, and just like Batteryman AA, if all Batteryman C you control are in attack position, all machine type monsters you control gain 500 attack for each Batteryman C you control. And of course the same applies if all Batteryman Cs are in defense position, but of course they give a 500 defense point increase to machines instead. This card is not very good. Of course it doesn't actually support Batterymen, which means it's quite hard to use, and it's quite hard to synergize with other machines like you're supposed to because it's a thunder type monster, and there aren't any cross type synergetic cards that make it easier. I mean, if there was a card that allows you to summon a machine and a thunder, maybe there'll be a difference. But the 500 attack point increase, which is what's going to happen most of the time, is going to be lackluster. In addition to there being a ruling that if you have 3 on the field, you don't get 1500 attack point boost for each of them. You only get a 500 attack point boost for each of them. So basically, if you have 3 on the field, machine type monsters you control can gain 1500 attack points, which actually is kind of lackluster and not really worth using because limiter removal is the thing if you really want to double your machine's attack points. So Batteryman C has no use and it sucks. Don't use it ever. Next off we have Batteryman D. Batteryman D was a better card. It's level 1, light thunder, no attack, but 1900 defense points, which of course is a very good threshold when it comes to monsters that can be normal summoned without tribute, because it means it can set it and it can defend against a lot of attacks. Batteryman D has the effect that your opponent cannot select other thunder type monsters you control as an attack target except ones called Batteryman D. So if you have 2 on the field, you cannot use it as a pseudo lock. It's not like Marauding Captain. If you have 2 on the field, your opponent can't attack any other thunder type monsters, but they can still attack Batteryman D. However, as time has gone by, this card has become a little bit more archaic. It was kind of used as a one-of alongside other Batteryman cards because it was easily summonable, and of course you could stall with it until you got your OTK together. But at the moment it doesn't really work, it doesn't really have a purpose, but it's still a nice card, and with 900 defense points is actually still quite notable. Next off, we have the Batterymen from the Light of Destruction. So we have first got Batteryman Microcell. Of course, like Thunder, like all the rest, this one is a flip effect monster. And upon flip, you get to special summon one level 4 or lower Batteryman monster from your deck, except another Microcell. And after this card has been flipped face up and been destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you get to draw one card. 100 attack and 100 defense. This card is brilliant and allowed you to actually kind of search for your Batterymen other than just trying to use out of theme stuff like Shining Angel. This card allows you to summon in defense position as well, so defensively, if you wanted to go for the AA OTK, you could summon a AA from the deck, and then you can special summon it back to the field in a multitude of ways for Inferno Reckless Summon. So this allowed you to search for it, in addition to allowing you to draw once it was destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard after being flipped. So this card on its own is a +1, and a very good +1 at that. But its full utility is fully realised with the newer cards that I will be talking about later. So this card is fantastic, and generally if you're going to use it, which you should, you will be using around 2 or 3 copies of it. Previous incarnations of the deck would use maybe 1, because of course it's a level 1 monster and it's quite slow depending on how aggressive you want to be. But Batteryman decks these days are very conservative, and you will OTK, but you're going to take your time about it. Microcell allows you to get momentum and get your resources in place, so at least 2 copies, if not 3. I recommend personally to use 3. Next off, we have Batteryman Charger, 1800 attack, 1200 defense, level 5 monster, so one of the more higher level monsters. When this card is normal summoned, you can special summon a Batteryman monster from your deck except another Batteryman Charger. You can also summon it from the hand, mind you, as well. It also gains 300 attack and defense for each Thunder type monster you control. So on the field, it also counts as a Thunder type monster, so it will hit the field with 2100 attack points. Use this effect upon normal summon, you get another Batteryman monster, which of course all Thunders, so he will be on 24 once his first effect has resolved. This card is the main powerhouse of the deck, and it is what actually gets you most of your advantage onto the field. This card, of course, in addition to being a very good facilitator for the AA OTK, meant that the deck could actually focus outside of that and just go for sure like fire, just attacking and swarming the field and just beat down, because with 2400 attack points and the ability to go even higher than that, it meant that Batteryman Charger could just attack monsters and not have to worry about OTKing because, well, he had enough attack points otherwise. In addition to the fact that he mitigates his tribute summon, which is how you will be summoning him, by summoning a monster, so you don't lose in terms of card advantage, which is very good. And you'll use this. Before, you would use it with Batteryman Microcell. You would summon a Batteryman D because it was the most likely thing to survive a turn, and then next turn you would tribute the Batteryman D to summon Charger to then summon more monsters from your deck. So this card in modern decks is still used and is still the centerpiece of the deck because it has better targets to summon. And of course, some people like using 2 because it can get cloggy because it's a level 5 monster. I personally use 3 copies because you want to draw this card as soon as possible. Next off, we have the boss monster of the Batterymen, also introduced in the Light of Destruction. Has 0 defense, 2600 attack, level 8. And of course, its stats are a little bit underwhelming considering its level. However, it is uber nice because it can't be normal summoned set, but it can not be special summoned except by removing from play 2 Batteryman monsters from your graveyard. So this card can be special summoned from your hand, 2600 attack point beta, without any influence to your field advantage, which is very good because Batteryman, as an archetype, find it very hard to maintain advantage, so being able to summon powerful monsters without having to interfere with that advantage, and in fact just have to get rid of monsters that have already been destroyed and sent to the graveyard, is invaluable. However, that's not all there is to Industrial Strength. He doesn't just contribute to OTKs, he also has an effect that allows you to banish a Thunder type monster in your graveyard to destroy a monster and a spell or trap card on the field. Keep in mind, you have to destroy a monster and a spell or trap. So if your opponent only has 1 spell or trap or only 1 monster, then if you're going to use the effect, you'll have to destroy one of your own cards. But most of the time, if your opponent has put enough cards on board, you'll be able to destroy 2 cards for just the price of banishing a Thunder type monster in your graveyard. Pluses, pluses, pluses. I do love this card, and it allows you some more onboard destruction outside of their other support cards. This card is awesome, and has gotten even better with Batteryman 9 Volt because it can actually be searched. And who knows? I personally use 2 copies of this card because it can be searched and it contributes to OTKs. However, some people in the past don't like it because of course the deck uses quite a lot of high level monsters regardless, so it can be dead early to mid game. However, mid game onwards, this card is invaluable, and of course using non-Batteryman Thunder type monsters for its cost is great because there are some decent non-Batteryman Thunder type monsters you can use in the deck to make the deck better, so it means you have more targets. So next off we have Batteryman AAA. One of the newer ones from the Shining Darkness, of course, is a light monster, has no attack and no defense. But when it is normal summoned or flipped face up, you can special summon another Batteryman AAA from your hand or graveyard, if only it summoned any Batteryman. Oh well, we can dream. This card actually is not too bad though. When normal summoned or flipped face up, upon release this had no utility. You would use it and you'd summon it, and then you could summon a Batteryman Fuel Cell from your hand because the condition would be met. However, with 0 attack and 0 defense, what would you be using him for? However, with the advent of Xyzas, this card is an invaluable tool in a Batteryman deck because it is in theme and allows you to have an instant rank 4 Xyz monster if you have one in your hand or in your graveyard. And ideally, if you have it in your graveyard and have set it up with a Microcell, then your rank 4 Xyzas will be for the cost of 1 card, which allows you to maintain your card advantage in hand, which is very important in a Batteryman deck. You want to preserve your card advantage so that when you can, at the opportune moment, you just summon all your monsters and then OTK. Batteryman AAA allows you to do this, but it also allows you to take control of the board, allowing you to summon powerful rank 4s, and of course the rank 4 toolbox has only gotten bigger with new cards like number 101, Silent Honor's Arc, and of course the notorious Exciton Knight. But this card is a good card because it just allows you to have more access to more controlling cards and not have to just focus on OTKing. However, of course, it can be dead at some points. However, if you do use it, you use it at 3 copies. It's just like AA. Its best utility is if you have more copies of it, because you have to have 1 in the graveyard for you to use it, and as soon as you've got 1 in the graveyard to use it, all the subsequent copies of it are instant rank 4 Xyzas. So if you're going to use this card, you use 3 of it, and generally you will use this in place of AA, and you will not use AA and AAA in conjunction, because both being low level monsters with very low attack points, you just don't want to be dead drawing those. So there are 2 main variants of the Batteryman deck, which are the AA OTK and the AAA variant, which of course focuses more on control and just general swarming, and of course uses rank 4s in addition to other Xyz monsters to maintain control of the board in addition to just OTKing. Next off we have the Batteryman Fuel Cell, which is another high level one, level 6, also from the Shining Darkness. It has no defense and has 2100 attack points. Its effect is if you control 2 or more Batteryman monsters, you can special summon it from your hand, just like the Blackwing monsters, but you have to control at least 2 Batteryman monsters. And it also has the effect that once per turn you contribute a Batteryman monster, accept it, to select 1 card your opponent controls and return it to your owner's hand. This card is my favourite Batteryman monster, because not only can this be summoned by Batteryman Charger since it doesn't have a level limit, it also acts as a very useful way of getting rid of your low attack point Batteryman monsters from the field, because there'll be a viability. But it also allows you to have a way of removing cards from your opponent's side of the field outside of destroying them. Does your opponent have a Stardust Dragon that is making you unable to push through with Short Circuit and Industrial Strength? Then you can just special summon a Fuel Cell, tribute that really crappy AAA, a AA, you know, one of your weaker Batterymen, then return it to the hand. But of course it will return to the extra deck. And of course this also applies to non-monsters as well. So if your opponent's got some troublesome back row that you just don't want to risk, get rid of one of your other Batterymen with Fuel Cell and you can get rid of it and return it to the hand. This card's fantastic. Generally, it's not the most, well, you can use 3 copies. I personally use 3 copies, but then again, like I've said before, it is a high-level monster, and the deck already uses many high-level monsters as it is. I use 3 just because drawing it is still a good thing, because you can easily special summon it once you've gotten some Batterymen on board, but I use 3, you can use 2, it will be a personal preference, but always use at least 2. Personally, I would use 3 though. Next off, we have the headliner. We have the newest card from the Duelist Advent, the Batteryman 9V. Now, for the 9 years that Batteryman have been a deck, they had some major problems. Two being is that Microcell and Batteryman Charger are fantastic. They were brilliant cards that came out in the Light of Destruction a long time ago. However, those cards were very good, but didn't have any really good ways to utilize them. Microcell didn't have any good standalone targets that it could summon. And of course, Batteryman Charger, as good as it is, can't be searched in any way, shape or form. But Batteryman 9V changes all this. Level 4, 1000 attack, 1000 defense. Its effect is that when it is summoned, you can add a Batteryman monster from your deck to your hand. Then its attack and defense become double of its original attack and defense, respectively. And you can only use this effect of 9V once per turn. However, it does have a downside. During the end phase, regardless of whose end phase, yours or your opponent, it will try and to destroy itself. Now, that may seem like a bad thing, but it just means that this card acts as a Stratos for the Batteryman deck, allowing you to get your combo pieces together. But it can't just be played willy-nilly, because it means that your card advantage, you use up your normal summon most likely when you summon this card, but it will destroy itself, so you need to be aware of that. That will be one of the most that will be one thing that will be at the forefront of your mind when using 9V, is whether or not you've used this effect already, and of course it will destroy itself, so be aware. Now, this circumstance goes around the issues of Microcell, because defensively, if your opponent attacks a Microcell and it flips their face up, you can summon 9V from your deck in defense position, and its defense would become 2000, already making Batteryman D redundant completely. And of course, you get a summon, because Batteryman 9V's effect activates whenever he is summoned. Doesn't matter which way. Normal, flip, special, doesn't matter, it will get its effect, which allows you to plus off its summon. But of course, since it destroys itself, it will turn into a neutral one. So you don't get more card, you get more card advantage, but of course, 9V can get its effect whenever it's summoned. So what you'll be using it with it is, once it goes to the graveyard, you'll be reborning it with Batteryman Charger and other reborning cards, just to get more pluses and to get more combo pieces in your hand. This card is amazing. But its main utility is that once early game is over and you've used your Microcells, you'll be using it to search for your Batteryman Charger, which of course couldn't be searched for before, and is the main pillar of all your combos. So Charger, of course, if you summon it, you can also summon 9V, get another search. However, you summon Microcell, your opponent, and for whatever reason you're able to protect it. You flip Microcell during your turn, summon 9V, search for Batteryman Charger, then tribute the Microcell for the Charger, then you can special summon Fuel Cell from your deck. Immediately, because 9V's attack and defense gets doubled when you do add a monster from your deck to your hand, 2000, and then of course the Fuel Cell has 2100, and then of course, since Batteryman Charger gains 300 attack points for each Thunder type monster on the field, that's an additional 900, he'll be on 27. That's a lot of attack points. If you can summon an Industrial Strength on top of that, you are pretty much OTKing your opponent, and this is what 9V does. It makes the OTKing and the combos more consistent, and being a level 4 monster is fantastic as well, because alongside Batteryman AAA, it means rank 4s are even more easy to use. But the best thing about this is that it has synergy with other non-Batteryman Thunder type monsters, them being the Hunter family. The Hunter family, of course, are generic, but only work really with level 4 Thunder type monsters, which 9V is. They have effects that allow you to summon additional Thunder type monsters from your hand, so 9V will get its additional effect, plus you'd be able to go for Exeases. But the main thing is that you can search for this card with Thunder Seahorse, a card which allows you to search for 2 copies of a level 4 light Thunder type monster with 1600 or less attack points, which of course Batteryman 9V is a target for. In addition, AAA is also a target for, so Thunder Seahorse and its inclusion in the Batteryman deck means that you can now have a much more consistent deck, with more copies of more cards to search for more cards. The Thunder Seahorse will search for more copies of Thunder Seahorse or 9V, which 9V will then search for more Batterymen. So more consistency means a better deck and more likely to win. So Batteryman 9V is a instant staple at 3 copies per deck. You want this as soon as you can. Now let's go to the spells cards. So we have the first spell card of the Batterymen, and it is of course a staple. It's the Battery Charger. Pay 500 life points, special summon a monster with Batteryman in its name from your graveyard. This card is fantastic. It is a staple. The life point cost is annoying, but is pretty much inconsequential because you just get to summon a Batteryman from your graveyard for free. Now, upon release, all you could really summon was Batteryman AA, and you still can, but now you've got stuff like Batteryman Charger, Fuel Cell, Batteryman 9V, which will of course gets effect upon summon when you use this. This card's awesome. This facilitates many plays, and of course main play will be using it as tribute fodder for your Batteryman Charger, so you can use this to summon monsters you've already lost, and of course go towards OTKing, but it allows you to utilize and facilitate the summon of Batteryman Charger, which is what generally you want to be saving it for. But of course, in terms of how many copies of it you can use, it can get kind of cloggy early game, but generally I personally use 3 copies of this card, but 2 copies is also reasonable as well. Next off, we have Quick Charger from the Light of Destruction. As much as the Light of Destruction introduced many decent Batteryman cards, they did introduce this one isn't that good really. It is a quick play spell that allows you to add 2 level 4 or lower Batteryman monsters from your graveyard to your hand. And as good as this card does seem on the side of it, is basically it's a +1 and it's a quick play spell. So if your opponent is getting rid of stuff from your graveyard, you can use it in response and save your Batterymen. At the time of release, you didn't have enough decent level 4 or lower Batteryman monsters in your graveyard to actually, well, you didn't have enough targets generally anyway, so this card was kind of redundant. 9V does make this card better, however, you're going to want to really have your Batteryman in the graveyard anyway, not in your hand, because you'll be able to special summon them from the graveyard much easier and much more efficiently if you summon them from the graveyard and not your hand. So Quick Charger, as nice as it is, you don't want to use this card in any quantity really. Next off, we have the Short Circuit. This card is amazing, and basically, normal spell, you can activate it if you control at least 3 Batteryman monsters, and it allows you to destroy all cards your opponent controls. That's literally it, you just destroy everything they control. And of course, Batteryman focus on swarming, so this card is so easy to get off and will be the card that facilitates most of your OTKs. So of course, Batteryman AA OTK, you've got all 3 of them on the field, use this, you win, because you can attack directly with 3 300,000 attack point monsters. Utilize it with alongside the more conventional monsters, this allows you to OTK so easily, and it's fantastic. However, of course, as good as the card is, it is not searchable. So you will generally want to be using more targets. However, well, you want to use more copies of it, but it can get cloggy, and more so than the other ones because you need to have at least 3, and this will be late game in which you'll be getting 3 because you'll be making your pushes at that point. So generally I use 2 copies of this card. If you want to see this earlier on, use 3. I recommend 2 just simply because it will clog early on in hand if you do. Next off, we have the only trap of the Batterymen, and that is the Portable Battery Pack. This card is also very good, coming from the Light of Destruction as well. It allows you to special summon 2 Batteryman monsters from your graveyard in attack position. When this card is removed from the field, you destroy those monsters, and of course if both of those monsters have been removed from the field, you destroy it. So it's the Call of the Haunted for the theme, but it's not just a Call of the Haunted, it's a double Call of the Haunted. Yeah, I heard you like special summons. I heard you can have special summons, you can special summon, oh my god, this card's great. However, of course, having 2 in the graveyard does mean actually you need to get 2 in the graveyard in the first place, so early game, not the best card. Just like Short Circuit, I would recommend you use 2 copies of this card, because not only does it facilitate the summoning condition of Fuel Cell, it allows you to just summon Batteryman monsters, powerful Batteryman monsters from your graveyard very easily. Also can be used as summoning condition. You can basically use it as tribute fodder for Batteryman Charger as well, which is of course a key card, and of course can summon 9V, allowing you to search for more cards. Now, an honourable mention, it's technically not got Batteryman in its name, but we have the Super Electromagnetic Voltic Dragon, the original boss card for the Batterymen. Now, it was a level 5 monster, 2400 attack, 1000 defense, light thunder type monster, and would get an effect depending on which Batteryman monster you tributed for its tribute summon. If you tributed Batteryman D, you could negate the effect of a spell or trap that would target him. If it was a Batteryman C, he does piercing damage. But if it was a Batteryman AA, he would gain 1000 attack points. Now, this card came out a long time ago in the Enemy of Justice, I think? But, of course, this card was one of the more beat sticks. Of course, you'd be going for the double AOTK most of the time, but if you weren't able to, this allowed you a little bit more muscle. Now, hopefully this card will get some kind of support in the future, because it's kind of one of those cards, very iconic of the Batterymen, but you won't be using this in your Batteryman deck. I recommend 0 copies. So, I hope you like this video. I've told you pretty much all I know about the Batteryman monsters, and of course I will be doing more videos on Batterymen and the actual deck itself and what choices I personally make in the future. If you have any ideas for a future archetype you'd like me to cover, then do say so in the comments down below or as a video response. I really would like to hear from you, and I really do appreciate and love doing the archetype analysis videos. Maybe I'll make it back into a series. But that's pretty much it, guys. In the links in the description down below you can see each of the Batteryman monsters that I've talked about, and I will see you soon.